Chosen one? Pause for a second and stay with me. This message is not random, and your presence here is not by chance. Something within you has always known that your life carries unusual weight, even when your surroundings tried to convince you otherwise. You have sensed it in quiet seasons, in moments when pressure rose without explanation, and in times when resistance followed you even while you were doing your best to live right. That inner knowing is not pride, and it is not imagination. It is the echo of divine assignment awakening within you. From the very beginning, your life was marked by purpose. You were shaped to carry heaven's intent into earthly spaces, not as something mystical or detached from reality, but as a living expression of God's authority, wisdom, and light. This is why ordinary paths never fully satisfied you. This is why compromise never sat comfortably in your spirit. This is why you often felt set apart even in familiar rooms. You are not strange, you are assigned. You are not late, you are being prepared. And you are not weak, you are learning how strength truly works. When God forms someone for impact, He also builds capacity. Capacity to endure misunderstanding, to remain steady under pressure, and to choose integrity when shortcuts are available. History confirms this pattern again and again. Those who eventually carried influence were often first shaped in hidden places. Before David stood in public honor, he learned courage and trust in isolation. Before Joseph handled authority, he learned restraint and faithfulness in confinement. Their stories remind us that visibility is never the starting point. Formation is. This is where many chosen ones become confused. They look at the weight they carry and wonder why life feels heavier instead of easier. They question why resistance shows up even when they are trying to do good. What they do not yet realize is that opposition often recognizes purpose before people do. Pressure is not proof of failure, it is frequently evidence of value. You are not being opposed because you lack something. You are being opposed because you carry something that cannot be ignored. Spiritual conflict does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it comes through distraction, fatigue, or subtle discouragement. Sometimes it shows up as delays that test patience, or relationships that test discernment. These experiences are not designed to destroy you. They are designed to refine how you respond. Every season reveals something about what you believe, how you trust, and where you draw strength. This is why your attitude, even when unseen, matters more than applause. Throughout history, God has consistently spoken to people based on who they were becoming, not who they appeared to be at the time. Gideon was addressed according to destiny, not current behavior. He saw weakness, but God spoke strength. That pattern has not changed. Heaven often speaks ahead of evidence because divine vision sees beyond present limitation. When you feel called higher than your current circumstances allow, it is not arrogance, it is alignment with a future that is still forming. This understanding shifts how you interpret your experiences. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this developing in me?" Growth does not always feel good, but it is always intentional. Every moment that requires patience is strengthening endurance. Every delay that challenges faith is teaching trust. Every season that demands humility is shaping character that can sustain future influence. If you are listening closely, you may already recognize patterns in your life. Times when you were pushed to mature early. Moments when you had to choose wisdom over reaction. Seasons when silence was safer than explanation. These were not losses, they were lessons. They were shaping your discernment and sharpening your awareness. You were learning how to carry authority without needing validation. This is why comparison has never served you. You were never meant to move at someone else's pace or follow someone else's pattern. Your journey is specific, and your preparation is personal. When you tried to fit into spaces that required you to shrink, discomfort followed. Not because you were wrong, but because you were designed for more than survival. You were designed for influence rooted in humility and power anchored in obedience. Take a moment and reflect on this honestly. How many times did you endure something that could have hardened you, yet you chose growth instead? How many times were you tempted to respond from emotion, yet you paused and sought wisdom? Those choices mattered. They were not small, and they were not unnoticed. Heaven values alignment more than appearance, and faithfulness more than speed. At the start of this journey, I want to invite you to engage intentionally. If this message is speaking to something deep within you, acknowledge it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and allow yourself to stay connected to teachings that strengthen your spirit. Preparation is easier when you are surrounded by reminders of truth. As we continue, you will begin to see more clearly why your life has unfolded the way it has. You will understand why certain doors did not open and why others closed suddenly. Nothing was wasted. Everything was shaping your ability to carry what is coming next without losing yourself in the process. You are not ordinary, and you never were. Not because you were better than others, but because you were entrusted with responsibility that required refinement. What you are becoming requires stability, clarity, and deep trust in God. This is only the beginning of that understanding. If you're ready to go deeper and understand why resistance follows purpose and how to walk forward without fear or confusion, let me know. As you move deeper into understanding who you are, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Purpose attracts resistance, but resistance also reveals direction. When you begin to see life through this lens, confusion loses its grip. You stop personalizing every delay or challenge, and you begin to read them as signals. Not signs of abandonment, but indicators that you are moving in alignment with something meaningful. Spiritual opposition does not waste energy on empty ground. It focuses where growth threatens darkness. This is why many chosen ones experience pressure early in life, sometimes before they have language for it. You may have felt tested in ways your peers did not. You may have carried emotional or spiritual weight that forced you to mature faster. That was not punishment, it was preparation. Strength was being developed quietly, long before you understood its necessity. Throughout history, those entrusted with divine assignments were rarely comfortable before they were effective. Moses wrestled with insecurity long before leadership was visible. Esther faced risk before influence was revealed. These individuals did not wake up powerful. They became steady through obedience, courage, and trust. Their stories show us that authority grows from surrender, not force. When God prepares someone, He first teaches them how to listen, how to wait, and how to move without needing to be seen. This is where many people stumble. They want outcome without intimacy, influence without discipline, and results without refinement. But the chosen path does not work that way. Power without grounding leads to collapse. Visibility without character leads to compromise. God, in His wisdom, shields you from premature exposure by allowing seasons that feel slow or hidden. Those seasons are protective, not limiting. You may have noticed that certain temptations appeared when you were closest to breakthrough. Discouragement surfaced when progress was near. Fatigue intensified when clarity was forming. These patterns are not coincidences. They are attempts to redirect focus and weaken resolve. Awareness changes everything. Once you recognize the pattern, you stop fighting blindly and start responding wisely. This is why spiritual discipline matters, not as ritual, but as alignment. Prayer centers your focus. Reflection sharpens discernment. Worship realigns perspective. These practices are not about performance, they are about positioning. When you consistently place yourself in God's presence, you begin to respond rather than react. You hear instruction where others hear noise. You find peace where others panic. Consider how many times you were protected without realizing it. Opportunities that looked appealing but carried hidden cost. Relationships that felt exciting but lacked depth. Paths that promised speed but demanded compromise. When those doors closed, disappointment followed. But with time, clarity arrived. What felt like loss was actually protection preserving your future strength. There is also a responsibility that comes with awareness. Once you know you were called to more, you must choose growth intentionally. You cannot keep feeding habits that weaken your spirit while expecting clarity to increase. You cannot ignore rest and expect endurance to last. God partners with discipline. He supplies strength, but you steward it. He gives vision, but you guard focus. This is where practical faith becomes powerful. Speak life over yourself consistently, not as empty repetition, but as agreement with truth. Align your thoughts with who God says you are becoming, not who fear says you are now. When doubt surfaces, address it with truth. When exhaustion appears, choose rest without guilt. Strength is sustained by wisdom, not constant effort. In the middle of this journey, I want to ask you something important. What patterns have you noticed in your own life? Where have you seen resistance increase just as growth was forming? Take a moment to reflect, and if you feel led, share your insight in the comments. Your experience may help someone else recognize their own path more clearly. Community matters more than many realize. Isolation weakens perspective, but shared faith strengthens resolve. This is why staying connected to spaces that encourage spiritual growth is essential. You were not designed to walk this journey alone. Even the strongest individuals in history had support, guidance, and accountability along the way. As your awareness deepens, you may also feel a greater responsibility to live intentionally. Your words carry weight, your choices influence atmosphere, your presence affects more than you see. This is not pressure, it is stewardship. When you understand that your life speaks even in silence, you choose alignment more carefully. Remember this clearly. Strength does not always look loud. Authority does not always announce itself. Often it shows up as consistency, restraint, and quiet confidence rooted in trust. When you no longer need to prove yourself, you are free to move with clarity. That freedom is powerful. You are learning how to stand without striving, how to trust without rushing, and how to move without fear. This stage of your journey is teaching you balance. It is showing you how to remain grounded while carrying responsibility. What comes next requires this stability. If this message is resonating, take a moment to like the video and stay connected. These reminders are not meant to hype emotion, they are meant to strengthen foundation. What you are building now will support what God releases later. In the next part, we will focus on how to walk forward with confidence, apply practical spiritual wisdom daily, and step fully into purpose without losing peace. Now we arrive at the moment where understanding turns into movement. Knowledge without application remains potential, but applied wisdom becomes transformation. What you have been learning about yourself, about resistance, about preparation, was never meant to stay theoretical. It was meant to shape how you live, how you decide, and how you respond to the world around you. One of the greatest shifts a chosen one experiences is the transition from survival thinking to purpose thinking. Survival asks, how do I get through this? Purpose asks, who am I becoming through this? When that shift happens, hardship loses its power to define you. It becomes a tool instead of a threat. You stop measuring your life by comfort and start measuring it by alignment. This is why some of the strongest people you admired did not have easy beginnings. History shows us that those who carried influence often endured long seasons of obscurity, misunderstanding, or limitation, not because they were overlooked, but because they were being strengthened internally before being trusted externally. When you understand this, comparison fades. You stop rushing your timeline and start respecting your process. Walking forward with confidence does not mean you will never feel uncertainty again. It means uncertainty no longer controls your decisions. Confidence grows from consistency. Each time you choose integrity when compromise is easier, confidence grows. Each time you remain patient when reaction feels justified, confidence grows. Each time you trust God's direction over your own urgency, confidence grows. This is where daily practice matters. Begin each day by aligning your mind before the world demands your attention. Ground yourself in truth. Remind yourself that you are guided, not abandoned, supported, not alone, equipped, not lacking. This is not denial of reality. It is clarity within reality. Practical spiritual wisdom shows up in simple choices. Protect your energy. Be mindful of what you consume, not only physically but mentally and emotionally. Conversations, media, environments, they all shape perception. Choose inputs that strengthen faith rather than fuel fear. You do not need to expose yourself to everything to prove strength. Discernment is strength. Rest is another key many overlook. Rest is not weakness, it is strategy. Even the most effective leaders withdrew regularly to regain clarity. Burnout does not come from doing too much, it comes from doing too much without renewal. When you rest intentionally, you create space for direction, creativity, and peace. As you step into greater purpose, generosity becomes important, not only financially, but with encouragement, wisdom, and presence. Giving keeps the heart open and grounded. It reminds you that your life is meant to impact others, not revolve around self-protection. The more you give from a place of alignment, the more you realize how supported you truly are. There will be moments ahead where your growth makes others uncomfortable, not because you are doing something wrong, but because your clarity exposes what they avoid. Stay kind, stay humble, stay focused. You are not responsible for how others respond to your obedience. You are responsible for remaining faithful to what you know is right. This is also the season to write vision clearly, not as fantasy, but as intention. What has God placed in your heart to build, to serve, to create, to restore? Write it down. Pray over it. Take small, consistent steps toward it. Progress does not require perfection. It requires faith expressed through action. Let me pause here and invite you to reflect. What is one step you know you have been delaying out of fear or uncertainty? What would change if you trusted that you were supported as you move forward? Share your thoughts if you feel led. Your courage to speak may unlock courage in someone else. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are positioned. Everything you endured sharpened discernment, strengthened resolve, and clarified direction. You are walking into a season where what once drained you no longer defines you. As challenges arise, respond with perspective. Ask what the lesson is before asking why it exists. Seek wisdom before seeking relief. This posture keeps you growing even when circumstances shift. Stability does not come from control, it comes from trust. If this message has encouraged you, share it with someone who may need reassurance today. Stay connected to this space because growth happens best when reminders are consistent. Subscribe, engage, and be part of a community that chooses faith over fear and purpose over pressure. You are not ordinary. You are not powerless. You are not overlooked. You are equipped, guided, and growing into what you were created to carry. Walk forward with peace. Move with clarity. Live with intention. This is not the end of your becoming. It is the confirmation that you are ready for what comes next.